We're going to talk to Congressman Jim Renacci. He represents a Cleveland suburb. He's a suffering Indians, Browns, Pirates fan. They're all having a bad season. Astros won 2 in a row. So maybe there's still a little ray of hope that somehow we fight our way back into playoff contention after a very dismal start. We're going to Cleveland for the National Convention. That's coming up the week of July 15th. We'll be there on the Air Radio Row. I'm a national delegate there. So's a Fräulein. We're going to have a good time bringing you all the action. Congressman, good to have you, man. Republican. I didn't know there were any Republicans in Cleveland, sir.
Well, good morning, John. And yes, there are. They're on the west side and south of Cleveland. Just not in the downtown area.
Well, there's a lot of good things happening in the downtown area, and it's not like your father's Cleveland, right? I mean, I could say that. I tell the story all the time. I went and covered the first debate there. Remember the first Republican debate we had? And right downtown in Cleveland, I was there, and I was setting up. I had set up for the debate that night, and I did my show in the morning and the afternoon. And then I went out, and my hotel was right downtown, and I go outside for something to eat. I do two things. I bump into Mike Huckabee, talk to him for a minute, turn around, and I look up, Congressman, and there's a casino there. And I'm like, I love this town.
Well, John, you're exactly right. I think people who come to Cleveland are going to see a major change of what they expect or what they thought. And it's not, as you said, my father's Cleveland. It is a different town. It's going to be a great to highlight all the positives there, including the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the casino, the 4th Street, which is a street that's closed off with a number of restaurants and bars and locations where a lot of people will be. The new convention center. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The new Brown Stadium, a few years old. The new arena that the Cavs will, as I told you last time we talked, they were 0-2, and they're fighting their way back. So the hopefully the champion Cavs will be able to you'll be able to see when you come back to Cleveland.
Well, you did predict that. You said it was going to go 7 games. It didn't look good there for a while. My morning producer, Michael, is cheering you on. He's a Cavs fan. He says they're going to go to Oakland and win the whole thing. I don't know if that's possible, but hey, if you get to a 7th game, right, anything can happen.
Well, that's exactly right. Anything can happen. And again, when you were 0-2, I must admit it was tough for me to say they were going to go 7, although I thought they were, and they're going to get there. All
right, it's going to be interesting. We'll definitely be tuned into that. Now, Congressman Renacci, I want to talk about Orlando and the raging debate that's going on right now. The presumptive nominee, I guess the nominee, unless something weird happens in Cleveland, Donald Trump on Monday, calling for basically a ban on immigration into the United States until we figure out what is going on. Now, you're a Republican. Do you think that makes sense or not?
Well, what I said about immigration all along is we do have a broken immigration system. We have to look at it. We have to have the political will to look at it. Too many people here in Washington don't want to say that this is an issue, but just total ban. Why don't I always say, why don't we get our job done? Why don't we start, looking at some things that can be done when it comes to immigration, protecting the borders, making sure our laws are being followed, establishing systems. I mean, I was in the business world for 28 years. The only thing people have to do is sign an I-9 form. I mean, we have systems out there today where you could basically check. We should be able to upgrade our system so everybody who hires somebody can check and make sure they have a tax identification number. All those things can be done. We need to have the political will to move forward on them.
Okay, so when you say we need the political will to move forward on it, Trump now being criticized by a lot of party establishment figures, Congressman, if you will, saying that speech was over the top, but nobody's come up. This is my thing, and I'm for Trump, so there's nobody has any question there, and I'm the Trump vice chair for the state of Virginia, so you know where I stand on this. But a lot of your colleagues bitterly complaining about Trump's speech on Monday in the wake of this massacre execution. Yet I got to tell you, sir, I've not heard one person in your leadership provide an alternative solution. Not one. Why?
Well, again, John, I would tell you that's one of the problems. It takes political will to do some of these things. We have to have solutions. We have to move forward with tax reform. We can't just have blueprints. We have to have actual plans. We have to vote on things. And when it comes to immigration, we have to have plans. We have to vote on things. We have to have hearings. We have to move forward. We have to set goals. I say everything I did in the business world has to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Has to be SMART. SMART. We don't do any of that down here, which is my frustration as a business guy for 28 years. And that's what you're hearing. We're not setting our sights and saying this is a specific goal. This needs to be addressed today. I mean, I've been here 5 years. We've been talking about immigration and tax reform for 5 years. I get so frustrated every time I turn around that we don't move on some of these things. And again, many cases that's because of the political will, the fear of doing something that will get you voted out of here. But one thing I said, John, even when I was mayor of my community, no matter what you do, 20% of the people aren't going to like you for it, 20% of the people are going to love you for it, and the 60% in the middle, you got to explain the reasons why. And that takes political courage and political will.
Well, that's what we don't have right now in some corners of your Republican House and Senate leadership. And, I mean, you just got to call it out, sir. It is what it is, and there's a lot of issues that we can go over on that. I want to get to Trump's meeting today with the NRA. Trump basically saying, hey, I'm going to meet with my number one advisor on guns, my friends at the National Rifle Association. They gave me the quickest, most emphatic endorsement of any Republican or Democratic presidential candidate ever. I trust what they say. I'm just going to go there, meet with them, have a discussion about maybe we look at ways to ensure that people on terrorist watch lists, no-fly zones that the FBI scoped out and said, these are bad people trying to harm us. Is there a way that we can confine their access to firearms? How do you think that meeting will go, and do you think it's wise?
Well, I think anytime you're willing to talk, listen, and talk about ideas, it's important. Again, it's one of the things we don't do enough of down here. We don't listen, and I think that's one of the biggest mistakes. My success in business always came from listening to people that were working and doing things and within the company. I think when it comes to the watch list and no-fly list, we need to talk about it. I'm not real excited about a list that has no verification. I mean, automatically denying U.S. citizens a constitutional rights based on inclusion on a faulty list is what bothers me more than anything. Now, if we're going to use a list, then let's make sure it's not faulty. But when you have lists that include Senator Kennedy, Congressman John Lewis, and others who I don't know how they get on that list, I don't know the process, and clearly we need due process. But if we did have a proper list and a proper due process to get on that list, I think those are the kind of things we should talk about.
Right. I think whenever you have a dialogue about a serious issue and you get all sides involved, you could come up with an answer. So I think that's a good first step. Congressman Renacci, there is a movement underfoot to provide a way at the Cleveland Convention for pledged delegates to be unbound. It would happen in rules. It's being led by the hashtag Never Trump Extreme Cruise Contingent. And they say, look, if we can get in there, we can find a way to get a rule change, which would govern the 2016 convention, that says we can unbound the pledge delegates. They can vote their conscience. Maybe we can strip the nomination from Trump. How real is it? And explain the logistics of that. How could that possibly happen?
Well, what they're talking about is Rule 16. Rule 16 was pushed 4 years ago by supporters of Mitt Romney. You know, this rule bound delegates to vote in accordance with the results of their state's popular primary vote. This was really done to protect the incumbent President Romney from grassroots, or at the time, the incumbent nominee, right, potentially Romney, from grassroots challengers. It's amazing that 4 years later, people want to change that rule or consider changing that rule. Look, what frustrates me more than anything, John, is I'm a big believer in process. The process occurred. People voted for a nominee. Trump was not my first or second choice, but clearly he was the choice of the people and the process. And that's why when we start talking about changing rules to violate process, I can't imagine us going down that path. That will cause people to become very unhappy with the process, the party, and in the end, will hand the election over to someone who we probably do not want in most cases, because I'm going to assume that will be Hillary Clinton, which I don't want, but I'm thinking that's the only other person who will probably be nominated.
Well, look, if that were to happen and it were to become real, I'm going to be a national delegate there, leading the Trump delegates in Virginia there. I can just tell you that to say that we would become unglued is the understatement of the day. But can you walk us through, Congressman Renacci, really fast? I mean, so they would pass a change in rules. Looking at the Rules Committee, they probably have a majority there to be able to do that. So they would pass a new rule that says delegates can be unbound. They would pass that in their committee. Then it would go to full rules. And then my understanding is they would have to get 75% of those to agree. Is that accurate or not?
Well, the Rules Committee, again, will be voting the week before the convention.
Right.
And the Rules Committee is made up of two individuals from each state. And those people will be able to unilaterally modify the nomination process. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, if and again, that's what will unglue this whole thing. But yes, that could be done the week before, and cause a real uproar in the convention. I mean, when people are talking about protests and all that, they don't realize the protests that will occur if you try and unbind the delegate process that's already in place and the people voted for, and that could happen the week before. I am truly believing in the process that will not occur, but I guess it could, and there's a possibility. Yes.
Well, there's definitely a movement underfoot for that. I mean, as a national delegate, I've gotten now emails from the hardcore Cruz Cuccinelli people. Cuccinelli, our former attorney general in Virginia, ran for governor, got beat, and now he's still on Cruz's payroll, basically saying, look, we have the votes to pass this in rules, but I can't seem to get an answer from anybody. If it does pass rules, it would have to be adopted by the full convention, right? And we're trying to figure out, I can't get anybody to tell me, is that 50% plus one? Is that 2/3? What is it?
The final rule package is decided by a majority vote in both the committee and by a full convention, so it's majority vote.
So 50% plus one.
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at the makeup, I'm being stark here. If you look at the makeup of the delegates on rules, okay, on its face value, the Cruz Cuccinelli axis probably has 50% plus one. If you look at the makeup of the full national delegation, the Stop Trump people might get to 50% plus one. So this actually would be within the realm of possibility, would it not?
I guess if you can get to the majority, anything's possible. I just think that that would destroy the party unity that, again, what unity is left? Because people have to understand that people have spoken. Trump has received the majority of votes, not only the majority, the most votes in history, far more than Romney. And I think it's time that we gather and support the process and the people. But yes, you're right. Anything can happen, and that's why that first week before the week before the convention is going to be just as important as the convention week.
Absolutely critical, because certainly if that passes out of rules and it gets to the floor, and that's going to be one of the first voting opportunities the full national delegation will have. I can tell you that for Trump-committed delegates right now, Trump-committed delegates, unbound, I don't think we have 50% plus one. Now, what I'm hoping is that there's a lot of delegates there that maybe Trump wasn't their first choice, like yourself, who are going to say, hey, this is just crazy. It's going to destroy the party. We're dead. It'll be the end of the Republican Party as we know it. And, common sense will prevail. But if you just look at Trump delegates like myself who are going to the convention to vote for Trump, and my wife and others in our delegation, you look at that list where we probably don't make up a majority on that first ballot if everybody's unbound. That's reality.
Well, that's all. There's always that possibility. I just hope people realize that they really should look at the consequences of what would occur after that. So
I think it would be an absolute horror story. But look, we really appreciate, Congressman, your being with us and and shedding light on these things. I appreciate our lively discussion as always. We will be hoping your Cavaliers bring home that big trophy.
I was going to say, next time we talk, I might be able to tell you the Cavaliers. I should be able to tell you by then the Cavaliers are the champions.
Well, hopefully you will. Congressman Jim Renacci, Republican, Southwest Cleveland, Ohio. Trump is going to have to carry Ohio to win. We think he can. I think the congressman is going to play a big role in that. Sir, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.